There's a big difference between how smaller companies market and how billion-dollar companies do their marketing. And it's such a big difference that it gives billion-dollar companies a massive edge, and it keeps them on top, while smaller companies are kind of stuck in this rut, competing with each other over and over again, right? Just to maintain the same level of sales month after month after month after month. And I don't care if a smaller company is doing $1 million a year or 10 or 30 or $50 million a year. Most of them still fall into this category. Not all of them, but definitely most of them. And the moment that you understand this and you shift your focus, your revenue and your profits and your ability to scale up grows massively. And it's simply this. When smaller companies think about growing, normally they look at things like their product and their services, and then they go out there and they try to figure out how to market those products and services in a bigger and better way, right? Which might mean using Google ads or Facebook ads or Taboola or Outbrain, or it might mean influencer marketing or TV or one of the other hundreds of other ways to market those products and services. And then they get caught up in this loop of constantly looking for higher converting ads on those platforms or better agencies to run those ads for them and other ways to keep their cost per acquisition as low as possible so that they could hopefully, maybe, possibly be ROI positive on the first day of their purchase, right? Meaning that they make back the money that they spent on those ads as close to day one as possible. So if they spend $1,000 today, they make at least $1,000 back today. And for most companies, it's not really that fast. Often they need to wait a few days or a few weeks before that money actually comes back to them. But the challenge is always to find cheaper ways to advertise in a way that generates profits from the ads that they spent as quickly as possible. And that's how most smaller companies do their marketing, right? They look for more or better ways to market their products and services, and they hope to be profitable soon after acquiring each one of those companies. And if they're smart, and by the way, it's very difficult to get to the 10 or 25 or $40 million mark or beyond without being at least smart at this one part. But if they're smart, then they look not just at the cost to acquire that new customer, but they look at increasing the average order value of that customer and lifetime value of that customer, as well as the automation of the entire process of locating and attracting and converting and onboarding and managing those customers for a long period of time. But billion-dollar companies look at this completely differently. And because they look at it differently, they scale far faster. And I learned this years ago while having dinner with one of the VPs of a company that does billions of dollars a week in sales. And what he said was the great majority of the time and money that they invest in business is not spent marketing their products or services. Right? It blew my mind. And I want you to hear that again, because every single guru out there will always tell you that the number one thing you need to focus on is marketing and sales, right? That's exactly the opposite of what this guy was telling me. He said that the number one use of their time and money is on growing their reach, meaning how large of an audience look to them as an expert when they're looking for that specific product or service. And the way I explain it to my teams is when you're on top of a mountain shouting your message, how many people hear you, right? More specifically, how many of your targeted market actually hears you? So when a company like Apple, as an example, comes out with a product, instead of going out there and spending a whole lot of money on marketing it to the masses, they simply put it out there in front of their massive audience who already knows, likes, and trusts them. Now, I remember when I first started my very first online business. It was back in 2003. And I had a group of good friends who were all starting about the same time. We used to get together and brainstorm. And we used to think about ways that we could sell more products, right? So we each had ebooks that we were selling online, and everybody in that group was spending a lot of money on things like SEO and Google ads and affiliate marketing. Those are the three main things. And most of them were netting a very small amount of money at the end of every single month. Even the really biggest guy there, who was making over $1 million a year in gross sales, which was a lot of money for us back then, but even he was spending over $900,000 to make that million. And certainly, I mean, obviously times have changed, and most of those people in that group are making considerably more than that right now. But back then, even just that $100,000 at the end of the year was still good, because we were all kind of just getting started online. But there was one consistent thing with all of these companies, including mine, and that's that the majority of the money we made was through our email list, not from actually selling our products and services from our ads, but rather through emails that we were sending people on our email list. So Rather than going out there and spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in Google ads or SEO or paying off affiliates, I looked for ways to increase the number of people who we reached with our message. And if you watch my past YouTube videos or follow me on pretty much any social media platform, you'll see that my companies have done a lot of very unique things to put our brand in front of large audiences to increase the number of people that we reach with our message. Everything, like from unique joint ventures to local radio ads to billboards on the side of the road to creative NASCAR advertising and a whole lot of other very outside the box ways of getting our word out. And most of those pretty much didn't cost me nearly the amount of money that my friends back then were spending on more traditional ads. And while they were all fighting for the same customers on the same platforms and trying to sell all of those people as soon as they hit their website, what my companies were doing is we were using more creative ways to get our message out there to a much larger audience. And we drove those people to our website, and then we offered them things for free if they joined our email list. And because the great majority of our net revenue, meaning our profit, came from our email list, while my friends were making 10% net revenue, my company back then was making 70 to 80% net. And while they were proud to have email lists that were about 100,000 subscribers, which is great, but that's where they were, my email list was over 3 million. So there's a big difference between small companies that fight each other for sales and larger companies that constantly seek new ways to increase their reach or the number of people that they touch with their marketing message, the number of targeted people that hear their message. Now, I'm absolutely not suggesting that you switch from whatever marketing is working for you today, but I am definitely suggesting that you put at least 10% of your marketing budget towards new ways to increase your reach. And if you do it right, then by next quarter, you should be far less reliant on the one or two platforms that are feeding most of your sales. And you'll grow faster than your competition who are all fighting for the same handful of customers on the same platforms.